Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upenradio.com.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Rebel Hearts. This is your host, Kristie Reeves. And I am extremely excited about today's show. Our guest today is someone whose work I've admired for many years, and I'm so honored that he's taking the time to sit down with us and talk about his incredible work. And, I'm all about inspiring you, Rebel Hearts, to become the change that you want to see in the world. And I feel that his work is really creating a great contribution to becoming that change, because he's teaching us how to become a master of our own life, that we're not victim of our reality, of our physical body, of our genes, but that we have the power to create change by changing our unconscious mind and our unconscious programming. So let me tell you a little bit about him real quick, and then we'll dive right in. Bruce Lipton is an internationally recognized authority in bridging science and spirit, and a leading voice in new biology. A cell biologist by training, he taught at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and later performed pioneering studies at Stanford University. He's the best-selling author of several books, The Biology of Belief, The Honeymoon Effect, and Spontaneous Evolution. He's also the recipient of the 2009 Goi Peace Awards. Bruce has been a guest speaker on hundreds of TV and radio shows, as well as a keynote presenter for national and international conferences. And he can also be seen, and I think this is a screen grab that we just saw on the screen, in the documentary film Heal, which is amazing. And he has a lot to tell us about the unconscious mind and how we can change our lives. So welcome, Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Oh, the audience is great. All right.
Going crazy for you.
Thank you, Kristie. I also, before we get going, really want to thank Jarvis, who's back there behind the scenes making all this work. I so appreciate it, because without the technology, this is going to be some dead airspace. So thank you, Jarvis, for putting us all together on this show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. It's such an honor to have you on the show and talk to you. I've admired your works for so many years. And I'm so about, changing our reality by changing our unconscious beliefs. And I actually want to dive right in with something that I call the Bruce Petri dish experiment. Which is, for me, it's one of the stories that you keep sharing in your books and in lectures and conferences about how you discovered how our environment actually affects us.
Well, it was a shock to my entire life as a medical school professor doing research on cells and teaching in the medical school the concept that genes control life, and that we're more or less victims of our heredity. Whatever genes are coming in, they control us and we don't control them. So that's what we were teaching in the medical school at the time. That was official curriculum. And while I was doing that teaching that genes control life, in my lab, I was cloning stem cells. Everyone heard of stem cells. Stem cells are the equivalent of embryonic cells that are in our body. And the reason why all of us have stem cells, no matter what age we are, is that we recognize, number one, a human body is actually a community of about 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. Mm-hmm. When you say Bruce, you say Kristie, what you're really talking about is a community of cells. So the beautiful part about my community of cells, which create my body and my life, is they also have a lifespan. Mm-hmm. Or they get damaged. Mm-hmm. And so we lose hundreds of billions of cells every day, hundreds of billions. Now, that was easy for me to say, but if you had to count 100 billion, it would probably take you a lifetime to get there.
That's quite a lot, yeah.
We're losing that many cells a day. And the question is just, well, how can you survive if every day you're losing hundreds of billions of cells? And that's where stem cells come in. Mm-hmm. Stem cells come in because they're the embryonic replacement cells that will replace anything in our body. And so I want everybody out there to understand this. If you're here watching and listening to this program, you have stem cells. The reason is this: if you didn't have stem cells, you'd be dead by now. So basically, a lot of people say, well, do I have stem cells? I go, everybody has stem cells if they're alive, because that's what keeps us alive. So I don't want people to run out and say, where can I get stem cells? You already got them. So that's the important point. What was the issue of the tissue culture study? Was I put one stem cell in a petri dish all by itself, and it would divide every 10 or 12 hours. So you start with one cell, then there's 2, 4, 8, 16, doubling and doubling and doubling. After a week, I've got about 30,000 cells in the petri dish. But the most important understanding about this is that all the cells are genetically identical cells because they came from the same parent.
Yeah.
So now I have 30,000 genetically identical cells, and I split them into 3 different petri dishes. So I put 10,000 cells in each of 3 different petri dishes. We grow cells in a tissue culture in a fluid. They're like fish. They have to live in an aquarium. So that's why when you cut yourself, fluid runs out under your skin. It's an aquarium. It's in fluid. So cells grow in a fluid, and the fluid is called culture medium. I say, yeah, but what is culture medium? I say, well, it's our laboratory version of blood. So in other words, if I'm going to grow human cells, I look at what composition human blood has in it, and then I try to reproduce that in a laboratory. If I grow mouse cells, I get a different composition for culture medium. So I grow these cells in culture medium that I create in a laboratory. Now here's the interesting part. Because I'm creating the culture medium, I can also change some of the composition. So I have slightly different culture medium. So I create 3 different versions of the culture medium. And in one dish, the cells form muscle. In a second dish, with a different culture medium, the cells form bone. And in a third dish, yet with another culture medium, the cells form fat cells. And you say, so what's the relevance? I go, wait a minute. They were all genetically identical cells. So the fate of the cell wasn't predetermined in the genes. They all had the same genes. The fate of the cell was determined by the composition of the culture medium. And it's like, oh, wow, what was the relevance? Well, genes didn't control their expression. It wasn't controlled by genes. It was controlled by the environment. And it's like,
so
okay,
amazing.
wait, I'm teaching in a class, genes control your life. And in my laboratory, the cells revealed, no, genes didn't control this at all. It was the environment. So this led me on a long journey into a new biology, because all my colleagues were looking at my work as, oh, that must be some kind of artifact, because we all know that genes control life. And I'm going, not really. This is reproducible. You could reproduce it day after day. So it wasn't an accident. So what does it come down to? Well, it comes down to a simple understanding. The chemistry of your blood contains signals that control our genetics. I go, oh, so the genes are blueprints, but the chemistry of the blood determines which blueprints are going to be read. And then further than that, I said, well, wait, what was the difference? I said, I changed some of the chemistry of the culture medium. That's the same as saying I'm changing some of the chemistry of the blood, which is this.
Yeah.
And then I go, well, wait a minute. In a human, the blood chemistry is controlled by the brain. Okay. And I go, oh, so the brain is a chemist that throws chemicals into the blood that go through the body and then cause different genes to be expressed. Healthy genes, sick genes, whatever genes are being controlled by that blood composition. Now, the last piece, when you put it all together, is like, and that is, so what chemistry should the blood have? What brain chemistry should be released? And I go, that's determined by the mind. And I say, the mind holds a picture, and the brain takes that picture and converts it into complementary chemistry. So if I have a picture of love in my mind, the chemistry that comes out is a complement to love. It includes things such as dopamine, which is pleasure. That's why when you fall in love, you feel pleasure. The brain releases dopamine, and 50 trillion cells go, wow, this is really great. Okay, so pleasure from dopamine. And I say, what else? Oxytocin. That's the bonding chemical that says bond with that element or person that is giving you love. And then I say, what else is in there? I say, well, vasopressin, which is a hormone that makes us more attractive to our partner. So the chemistry of the blood is increasing our vitality. And that's why when people fall in love, they glow. The glow isn't an accident. A glow is chemistry. And the most important one is when you're in love, you release growth hormone. And that really enhances the health and vitality. So people in love are healthier than people not in love, mainly because the chemistry in the blood is encouraging love. In contrast, let's look at it this way. If you open your eyes, but you don't see love, you see something that scares you. None of those chemicals are going to be released into the blood in a picture of fear. In a picture of fear, we release stress hormones. We release hormones that influence the immune system. And I go, well, these have a completely different function and different behavior. As a matter of fact, they're the opposite of growth. That's why growth, love is connected, but fear is connected with death, because the chemistry of fear stops the growth. It doesn't do that to punish you. It basically says, look, if you're in fear, that means you have to get ready to run or fight or flight. You know, you're going to have to defend yourself. So the body wants to conserve energy so you can run away from a saber-toothed tiger. So since growth requires so much energy, if you're going to run from a saber-toothed tiger, it's like, oh, okay, no time for growth right now. Conserve the energy and run. So the stress hormones shut down the growth and maintenance of the body until you can escape the threat. Well, a long time ago, when we were, only afraid of the saber-toothed tiger, then you can run away from the tiger. You'll be in stress while the tiger's chasing you, of course. But once you escape from the tiger, it's like, okay, stress is over with. Let's go back and relax now and grow and take care of our lives. The problem is today's world, the stresses aren't very, short periods. The stresses for most are 24/7, 365. I go, you mean you're releasing these negative chemicals in a sense of regard to your growth and your health? You're releasing them continuously. I go, yes. I say, that is why, and here's the fact, up to 90% of health issues are due to the chemistry of stress in our body. That we've been blaming genes for everything. It's like, no. Genes are blueprints. Don't blame the genes. They're just blueprints to make parts. It's the nervous system and the mind that are determining how those parts are going to be created, if they're going to be healthy or what's going to happen to them. So all of a sudden it says, all these years we've been trying to change the genes. I go, wrong. Change the mind. The mind is creating the picture. And just to summarize this, I don't use all the time. Basically, most people are very familiar with one aspect of that. It's called the placebo effect. I say, what's the placebo effect? I say, well, you're sick. I say, oh, I'm the doctor and I've got this brand new medicine. It's purple, so it's going to work better. And when I give you this medicine, this is going to take care of you. And you take the medicine, you get well, and then only find out that purple pill had nothing in it but sugar. So you have to stop at that one moment and say, I just got well from taking a sugar pill. I say, yeah, how did that happen? And the answer was, not the sugar. That had nothing to do with it. It was the thought that this is going to heal me. And in that way, this thought is translated into chemistry of healing, and we heal ourselves. So we heal ourselves with our mind, not with a sugar pill. Now everybody goes, oh yes, the placebo effect. I know about that. That's where we believe the thing works and it works. And I go, yeah. But now for the audience, this is the most important fact up to now, and that is this. The placebo effect represents the consequence of having a positive thought. Yes, this is going to make me better and I'm going to feel really good. So a positive thought sends chemistry for a positive result. What about a negative thought? People don't talk about that. And I go, you've got to talk about it for this reason. To the body, a negative thought also releases chemistry, but not positive chemistry, but threatening chemistry. And I go, oh, a negative thought can create all the illnesses that we have. And I go, how does it do that? Because the thought is translated into complementary chemistry. So a happy thought turns out happy chemistry, and a negative thought turns out stress-related chemistry, which will cause all these problems. Now, why is it important? Because, as I said, we all talk about placebo effect, and everybody goes, yes, I acknowledge that. Yeah, healthy, good thought makes me better.
Yeah.
I just want people to understand this. A negative thought is equally powerful in controlling your biology, but a negative thought works in the opposite direction than a placebo.
Yeah.
It's actually given the name in medicine called nocebo. Nocebo means the illness as a result of a negative thought. So now we return back, and I'm going to stop this long talking stuff, but with a simple conclusion. Genes do not control life. Life is controlled by the chemistry of the blood. The chemistry of the blood is related to the consciousness of the mind, where positive view of the world releases positive chemistry, which enhances growth and vitality, while a negative thought releases chemistry as well, but does not support our health. In fact, can actually shut it down while we're living in fear. So the most important understanding is this: positive thoughts and negative thoughts are equally powerful in controlling our biology. The difference is very simple. The difference is that a positive thought enhances our vitality, and a negative thought can cause all the illness. And now we recognize up to 90% of illness had nothing to do with the genes at all. It had everything to do with the way we're seeing life. And I shouldn't have to be giving you this talk, Kristie, because you are the poster child of this biology belief, because you turned your life around by saying, wait, all they're giving me is a negative story about my health, and it's I don't want that story.
Yeah.
And you change the story, you change your life. So thank you for demonstrating everything I just said.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you for that. And for me, what was so mind-boggling when I came across that work of, how does the unconscious or the subconscious mind work compared to the conscious mind, and how much our lives actually being run by the subconscious compared to the conscious. Because I was in spaces from believed, I totally deserve to have absolutely vital health. I deserve to have the most wonderful, special relationships and the success in my career, and it wasn't working. I would run into walls. I would get so far, and then I would get stopped, and I would go into the same patterns over and over again, because it was my subconscious programming that was manipulating or sabotaging or having counter programs to what my conscious mind thought. And it was just amazing.
This is the issue for why most people say, oh, that positive thinking stuff, that's a bunch of BS, which means belief system, that this positive thinking didn't work for them. And then they say, well, it doesn't work. And I go, as you just mentioned, and here's the fact, so there's a number to it, that the two minds, yes, that's where people go wrong, because they say the mind. I go, no. The two minds. And all of a sudden you say, oh, wait, there are two. I go, yes, and they have different functions and they learn in different ways. So you can't say the mind. We have to say the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. They work together. They integrate their behavior. But they work in different ways. The conscious mind is the creative mind connected to our spirituality. What makes two people different from each other in regard to mind is the conscious mind, which is related to a massive tissue right behind your forehead here called prefrontal cortex. I say, why is it relevant? Because the conscious mind connected to your personal identity, your spirituality, which makes you different from everybody else, has thoughts. And with thoughts, then we create the pictures of what we want. I go, cool, this is really great. This is where the placebo effect comes in. I have a thought, it's going to heal me. Oh my God, it healed me. Great. Okay. But the idea is this: the conscious mind can control the biology. It's like the pilot behind the, steering everything. And the conscious mind can make me go here and there and all that. And I go, really cool. But then I say, but here's an issue, which is where the conflict comes. The conscious mind can pay attention to what's going on in the world and respond, or the conscious mind can think. And that means, and this is the point, the moment you're in thought, you're not paying attention to what's going on. I'll give you an example. So I say, Kristie, tell me what you're doing on Thursday at 2:00. And the reason why I bring this up, just like a simple question like that, is I said, where's the answer? The answer isn't on the wall in front of you. It's not tattooed on your arm. I say, where's the answer? It's not outside. The answer is a thought. And so the conscious mind has to think. It goes inside to look for the answer. As I said, the answer of what you're doing on Thursday is not outside here, but the answer is inside here. This is the most important point here. If the conscious mind is thinking, then by definition, it means it's not paying attention to what's going on outside because it's looking inside. I go, well, if I'm walking down the street and I have a thought, does that mean I stop until the thought is gone and then start walking again? I go, no. If you're walking down the street and have a thought, you continue walking. I say, yeah, but you didn't hit the tree. You didn't fall off the curb. I say, you walk pretty safely. Same thing with driving the car. You drive the car and be daydreaming and all of a sudden realize, oh, I'm at my destination without even having seen what was on the road between that time you had the thought. So here's the point. The conscious mind controls the machine, biology, based on your thoughts. But the conscious mind, when it is thinking, has to let go of the wheel and go into the inside to look for an answer. I say, yeah, but the vehicle, the body is still moving. So I say, that's the autopilot kicks in. I say, what's the autopilot? I say, subconscious. The subconscious knows how to walk. It's anything that we've learned that has become a habit, walking, talking, driving the car. Habits are what are programmed into the subconscious mind. So as we just saw with Jarvis, put up there beautiful pictures, which he's accompanying this talk, which I so appreciate. The fact is this: when the conscious mind is thinking, then dealing with the outside world while your consciousness is inside is the job of the subconscious. It's got programs. It knows how to walk, so I can continue walking down the street and let the subconscious take care of it. And people go, oh, you mean I gave up control to the subconscious? I go, the subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful a computer than the conscious mind. So you're actually much more capable when you're not thinking and letting the behavior run a program because it's faster. So for example, if you're in a car and the car starts to skid out of control, what happens in your brain? The stress hormone shut off the thinking mind. Why? It's too slow. Let me demonstrate myself behind the wheel going out of control using my conscious mind. Oh, in other words, I'm so slow that nothing would happen. But what happens the moment you get into that stress moment and the stress hormones kick in, the conscious mind shuts off. And all of a sudden you find yourself turning the wheel and hitting the brakes and handling the car. No thought. Faster than thought. So subconscious mind is not a negative thing. The only thing that's negative is if you have a program in the subconscious mind that doesn't support your life and you give it automatic control, then while you're thinking, your program is destroying your life and you don't see it yourself. And Kristie, an analogy, not an analogy, it's actually a story that describes this, which I presented this for 20 years in my lectures. So, and I keep presenting it. Why? Because people get it. I go, here's the story. You have a friend. You know your friend's behavior very, very well. And you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the same behavior as their parent. So you excitedly say, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then I say, back away from Bill. Because the first thing Bill's going to do is go, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And people laugh because everyone is familiar with it. I go, that right there is one of the most profound stories I could say right now for the simple reason. Everybody else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill. I go, explain that. I said, we just did. How do we do that? I say, when Bill is thinking, he plays the program of whatever it is, walking, talking, whatever job, I don't care what it is, whatever he's been programmed. But when he's playing the program, why is he playing the program? And the answer is because his conscious mind's not paying attention. So whatever program is being played when you are thinking, you don't see it. It's everybody else can see it, but in your mind, you're on automatic and you can't see the play because you're focusing on your thought. Actually, sometimes, just as you're coming out of the thought and returning back to being conscious for a moment, you can catch the tail end of a behavior and go, oh, I was just like my mom. Oh, that was just like my dad. You see the little end of it, but you didn't realize you've been playing this program the whole time. So here's the conclusion, and this is the most important part of the talk so far, and that is this. Science has recognized that we are conscious of only about 5% of our cognitive activity. I mean, 5% of the time you are actually controlling your behavior, what's going on in the world, and it's up to you. 95% of your life comes from the automatic programs in the subconscious. And here's the problem. Most of the basic programs in your subconscious didn't come from your wishes and desires. It was the first 7 years of our life where we were programmed, sort of like booting the machine to get it ready to work. You have to put some programs in it. And once you have the programs, then you can be automatic. So the science has recognized the first 7 years is the record program, where we download behavior. And I said, how did I download behavior? The first 7 years, your brain is in a low vibrational frequency called theta in electroencephalograph, EEG. Theta is hypnosis. It basically says for the first 7 years, you observe everyone around you, especially your parents, then your siblings, then your community. You observe them like a video recorder. I'm not thinking. Thinking doesn't start until around age 7. First 7 years is taking it in the data. How do people behave? How did my mom respond to this stimulus? How did my dad respond to this situation? And why is it important? Because just observing them, recording their behavior, you record their behavior. So your fundamental programs in your subconscious mind didn't come from you. They came from observing other people. And I go, oh, so that means when I'm thinking 95% of the day and I am playing programs, the fundamental programs are playing are not matching my wishes and desires of life at all. They're just replaying the same programs I downloaded from my mother, father, siblings, and community. And this becomes really totally relevant because if 95% of the day you're not controlling your behavior, then that means your life isn't controlled by you at all. Only 5%. And so how can I control my life? And the answer is A, stay conscious all the time. That's called being mindful. And the issue about being mindful is it's very hard to stay mindful because that means we're not going to be thinking. I go, well, that's where the problem comes in because we're always thinking. So it's an effort to stay mindful, but it's an exercise where you can keep your mind, your conscious mind present. Little sidebar. Almost everybody out there at some time or other played mindful and created the most fabulous life experiences they ever had. I go, when was that? I go, science has recognized that when we fall in love, the period in the beginning where love is so wow. This is what I refer to as the honeymoon effect, where your life could suck every day. And then you meet this person, it's like, oh, heaven on earth, life is so beautiful. And I said, well, wait, how did life not be so beautiful? And then overnight, after you met this one person, overnight, the next day, life was heaven on earth. I go, how could that happen? And now we know why. The answer is this. When you fall in love like that, it's the one time you stop thinking. I go, what do you mean stop thinking? I say, you've been looking for this individual your whole life. They're in front of your face right now. Why would you spend time thinking when they're right here? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, then we automatically are keeping present. We're staying present in the moment and watching it and taking it in, enjoying it. I go, and staying present means then your behavior is controlled by your conscious wishes and desires, your positive thoughts, and not by the programs. So I say, that moment you fell in love, you stopped playing the program. I say, what happened the moment you stopped playing the program? Earth turned into heaven. I say, that was always there all the time. The only problem was you've been playing the program all the time. The moment you stop playing the program, health, happiness, joy, love, pleasure is available to you all the time. So there's a last conclusion then is simply this. we have great wishes and desires of what we want in our lives. We find a struggle to get them, and we think that the outside world is responsible. It's not in my fate to have happiness. It's not in the cards for me. You know, I've been so sad all my life. I go, okay, wait a minute. The reason for that is very simple, is because you are not controlling your life with your wishes and desires. The average person, 95% of the day, is playing the programs. Dysfunctional families breed dysfunctional behavior and pass it on to the next family member and the next family generation. How profound? They followed the fate of kids who were adopted into families where there was cancer running in the family. And when they followed the fate of these adopted kids, guess what? They found out the adopted kids got the same family cancer, but they came from totally different genetics. What was the point? Cancer is not a genetic problem. Cancer is a problem of not handling stress because we've been programmed incorrectly. And it's interesting because in the resolution of cancer, there's two, a person gets diagnosed with cancer and then the doctor says, okay, we're going to do surgery, we're going to do chemotherapy, blah, blah, blah. And I have two different people with the same cancer go through the same thing. I said, there's two different outcomes. One of them will get the cancer again and the other one will never get the cancer again. I say, so what was the difference? And here's what the difference was. The first one says, oh, cancer, that's because I had some stupid cells and the doctor took the stupid cells out. Now I'm better. Those are the ones that are going to get the cancer again. The other one, what was different, they said, oh my God, my life is not in order. The stresses of family, the stresses of job, these are so negative and impacted me in such a way, I'm going to just let go of all these stresses and change the character of my life. That's the one that won't get the cancer again. And the reason is this. Cancer wasn't an accident of cells. Cancer takes anywhere to get it off the ground, 14 to 15 genes to get it off, and over 200 genes to maintain it. I'm going to say, is that an accident? I say, no, it's not an accident. We are creating it not by intention, not by desire. That's conscious mind. We're creating it because of dysfunctions of programming that made us feel that we were victims of the world, and we become victims because our belief is turned into reality. And you personally were given the victim mentality that, oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing that we can do about your life. We've
you have
tried
to live
everything.
with this.
Forget it. This is your whole life. Until you realize, I don't want that life. And I can change that life. So this is why I so appreciate being on your show, because I don't have to explain this to you. Your audience is already aware of what happens if I take the power back and stop playing the program. And then lastly, my third or fourth lastly here, lastly is, I said, you can create this heaven on earth by just staying conscious. And yet the beautiful, beautiful part is that we can reprogram the behaviors that were downloaded into us in the first 7 years. And if we rewrite those programs so that the new programs match wishes and desires, that means even if you're not paying attention and the subconscious kicks in, the behavior it will be playing will be the new program, love, health, and happiness, which means, oh my God, then 100% of the day, whether you're paying attention or you're not paying attention, you're going to the same destination. And that's the most important part that people have to understand. My life at the moment is a victim of my programming, but since I can change the programming, then all of a sudden I can remove myself as a victim and step into the world as a creator.
It's just so amazing with everything you're saying. I'm like, yes, please. It's so incredible. And I want to take what you just shared with us on a more global scale, Bruce, because we talked about the subconscious program we have, and so much that we receive is from our family, the family environment that we grow up in. But there's something else, which is cultural, group consciousness programming. And I just want to share a quick story with you. When I first moved to LA, I was born and raised in Germany in a very Christian community. I was raised Protestant. My roommate at that time when I first was in LA was from Egypt. She was a Muslim. And our neighbor was from Israel and she was a Jew. And we would always hang out together and have coffee or make dinners together. And one day we actually looked at each other and we're like, and my neighbor from Israel and my roommate from Egypt, they looked at each other and said, in our country, we're not even supposed to hang out. We're not even supposed to talk. We were raised to believe that you are my enemy. And here we are sitting in LA having coffee together. And, knowing what we know about the beliefs and the programming that children receive in the first 7 years of their life, how can we create a change on a global scale by looking at that programming that we receive from our culture, religion, group consciousness?
This is the most important issue facing this world. And it's interesting that you've had that experience because I went to Tel Aviv and gave a program at the university, the big university in Tel Aviv, where we bussed in 200 Palestinians from the West Bank. Very interestingly, when the Palestinians normally come into a program in Israel, they're sort of like the lower caste. They sit in the back of the room. They don't communicate. It's like a wall between them and the other people. But this program was on the nature of everything we've been talking about programming. And let me emphasize this for some of those people who are going to catch this right away. The idea that we've been programmed in the first 7 years and that these programs run our lives 95% of the time, this is not a new idea. This is 400 years old because there's a statement here I'm going to quote, and that is, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. This is the Jesuits. And for Jesuits, what did they know? They said, give me a child until it's 7, I'll show you the man. Meaning, if I get the first 7 years of programming, which is the programming period, and then your life is 95% of that program, then by definition, whatever program I put in, your life is going to be 95% of that program. So they've known that for 400 years. Okay. Well, so in Israel, I'm giving this lecture and it's neat because it was sort of a little mixing of the people because they are all there for consciousness and parenting. So it wasn't the separation as much, but where the whole thing radically changed was I just gave the presentation about the nature of how programming occurs and that the first 7 years of this programming and that this becomes your life. And so the audience is just listening to this. And then I say, here's the problem. And the screen, I'm on big PowerPoint, big giant screen. And the words right across the top say, the problem. And then 2 pictures side by side show up. One of them is Israeli kids playing with machine guns. And the other is Palestinian kids dressed in military uniforms, marching with wooden guns. And I say, this is your problem. You've already programmed them before 7 to hate each other. They don't even know each other. But by the time they recognize who they hate, you've already created the problem. And then I said, and here's a solution. Next picture up says the solution. Then 2 pictures come up. And one of them is an Israeli boy and a Palestinian boy playing with trucks. And the other one was an Israeli girl and a Palestinian girl walking down the street, arm, over each shoulder, walking down the street. And I said, that is the resolution. You could have heard a pin drop in this auditorium with 2,000 people in it. Why? It hit them. Oh my God, we are creating and perpetuating this entire strife that has been preoccupying the Middle East for a long time. Why? Because it's passed generation to generation. The beautiful part, at the end of that program, there was food and there was whirling dervishes and some dancing and stuff like that. And the Palestinians and the Israelis were dancing and sharing together because it was the first moment that, stop, look, this is programming. And for that moment, everybody said, oh my God, we are creating this. And it's like, yes, you are. And you can uncreate it just by changing this program. And as well, and that's where peace in the world is going to come from. And it's interesting because we're seeing an evolution right now. People don't realize it. All they look out the window and goes, oh my God, the world's falling apart. And I go, thank you. Because for a simple reason, the way we have been living on this planet, treating each other and treating nature the way we treat each other, destroying nature and destroying people, we as a culture, a civilization, have created the 6th mass extinction of life on this planet. 5 times in history, life was thriving and something happened and 90% or so of life disappeared. The last one is when the dinosaurs disappeared because a comet hit the earth and destroyed the environment. Today, we are facing the 6th mass extinction. And the issue is science has recognized human behavior is undermining the web of life, and that the way our cultures have been living, we are destroying ourselves. So if we want to survive, we cannot be living the way we're living. The culture is destructive. Between the violence between people and the violence with nature, we are killing ourselves. So we need to move into another sustainable world. We're in an evolution between conventional world, new world. We're in the middle. We're breaking down the old world and building a new world right at this moment. I mean, the Me Too movement for women is an example of a major evolutionary change on this planet. We will not be going backwards into the old style of behavior. Why? It's an evolutionary jump. So when you see chaos, the significance of chaos is that the structure is coming apart that is causing the problem, and a new structure is forming. This new structure forming is actually connected to what we're doing right now, and that is this. With the development of the computer and the development of the internet, all the people that have been separated from each other because I'm in this country with a border and you're in that country with a border and we don't talk to each other. Now all the young people, not the older ones, the younger ones are internet savvy, and they're connecting across the world because they recognize the computer community shows no borders, no boundaries, nothing like that. It's a unity. And so the younger generation is not sticking to the old, this is mine and this is yours and we don't like each other. The younger generation is like, hey, we're all in the same family. And this is the leading edge of an evolution, the opportunity to communicate without the bias of an owned newspaper or an owned television station whose information is obviously guided by the wishes of those that own it. The internet is not owned. It led to the Arab Spring because people in the Middle East looking on the computer going, oh, look at all those people in these other countries. See, oh, look at all the wonderful happiness and things that they have. And they looked around their area and go, this really sucks. And that precipitated it saying, we don't want this old one. We see that one. And this is undoing of that old patriarchal stronghold that separated all those Middle East people from the rest of the world is part of the evolution. So a show like this is, hey, I could be in Tunisia right now and be watching this show. And so the internet is a nervous system of an evolving new civilization. And it's the millennial generation, which will be spearheading this new evolution. And there's some of us old, cantankerous old guys who are still here that are old, the people with something to say about, hey, don't do what we did. There's something better. Let's go this way. So we're the elders, but it's the young people. This evolution is coming right now is millennial generation, 40 years and younger is the seed of a new civilization. And we're disentangling at this moment from the old, the coming down, but the new one is building up. And so when you look at the world and it's in chaos, go, this is very good. Because if it stayed exactly the same, mass extinction will take us out before a century. Humans will be gone.
It wouldn't change.
So thank you for making evolution right here, Kristie.
There you go. Thank you for being part of this. Now, Bruce, what I want to love to hear about is how has your life changed personally from that first Petri dish experiment of learning about how our thought influence our biology and therefore our reality? What has changed in your own life, or how are you living your life differently from before the Petri dish experiment?
Oh my God, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different world, because once I started to recognize this, it's very interesting. When I first saw this in the science, and it was just science, like I write in a scientific publication, yes, the culture medium changes the genetics, blah, blah, blah. When I saw, I said, but wait, since I'm the one that's controlling the culture medium with my mind, then I can change the character of my biology by changing my mind. And this was an intellectual thing. So I got so excited. I wanted to tell people. And I said, come on, anybody could come in this room. Let me give you a lecture about how you can create the most wonderful life on this planet. And the interesting part, in the very beginning, when I tried to give people this information, the audience would look at me and sort of go, well, Lipton, for a guy who says you know how to create this most perfect life, your life doesn't look that perfect. And I realized that was the catch point that we all have to understand. My conscious mind, very aware of how to live and be healthy and happy, great, except my life is only 5% from that conscious mind. So even though I had all this wonderful wisdom, my life was still the old, stupid life that it was. No matter how smart I thought I was. It was when I caught myself saying, wait, I'm not walking my talk. My behavior does not match my consciousness. That's when I realized that if I can reprogram the subconscious, which I learned how to do, then I could take those negative programs and replace them with positive programs. So what's the result? I've been living in heaven for 20 plus years now, almost 30 years. I have no doctor. I take no pharmaceutical drugs. If I have an issue, I know it starts from here, and I know I can fix it from here, as you well know. So I say, and guess what? But not only my internal physiology is harmony now, my external world is harmony, because that invisible behavior, like Bill didn't see from his father, my invisible behavior was sabotaging my life in spite of my wishes to have heaven on earth. Reprogramming those behaviors all of a sudden changed my entire life. So I wasn't shooting myself in the foot all day. And my life is... it's hard to contain it. It's so beautiful and so different than the first 50 years of my life. That is like, wow, I will never step backwards again. It's necessary for us to move into this beautiful new future. Let mind be the controlling device. Create from that mind, but create from the conscious mind, because our subconscious creations themselves are basically very negative and disempowering. And as you know,
yes,
you can change all those, and then automatically just as fast as you could have a sucky life, fall in love one day, and the next day heaven on earth, you can change your life from the old way it is to the new one. We just recognize, we've all been programmed. Now a little add-on piece.
Okay.
The programming starts last trimester of pregnancy. Fetus is learning. I say, playing music, to repeat this music as a pregnant woman. And when the baby is born and you play that music, the baby will know immediately, recognize that music. The father can talk through the abdominal wall to the fetus, talk to the fetus. When the baby is born and the father opens his mouth and says something, the baby will instantly know that was the one who was talking. So a fetus learns. It's already programming. It goes through the first 7 years. The problem with us right now is, hey, so what was that program that might be totally negative that you got when you were 1? I have no idea. I wasn't conscious. I have no idea what the heck. Or 0 or 2. I don't remember these programs. So the biggest issue is this. Yes, I've been programmed, but I don't know what the programs are. And I say, I can tell you right now what the programs are. So simple. And that is this. Everything that you like, wish, and desire that actually comes into your life comes in because you already have programs to encourage and support those. But, and this is the one, anything you work hard at, put a lot of effort into, sweat over to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to work. I go, why are you working so hard? And the answer is simple. Your program doesn't support that. whether it's relationships, job, making money, I don't health. The issues are if you're expressing them, it's because you have a program and they're playing 95% of the day. So you can look at your life and go, this is what I want to change. And these I don't want to change because they're working really good. And then by specifically identifying where your struggles are and rewriting a program that complements what you want, you can rewrite the subconscious and create the life you want. And all of a sudden I say, yes, we are not victims. We are creators. The only problem is we've been victimized by programming that is disempowering.
Yeah.
Take away your health, take away your beautiful life. These are programs. And once we recognize the program, then you can recognize I can rewrite the program, and all of a sudden your life will switch around virtually instantaneously. We are the creator, and we must let go of, oh, I'm a victim of genes, I'm a victim of this. No, you're a creator. Yeah.
And I want to share a story about getting a kick out of this. When I first started doing belief work and learning how to access unconscious beliefs and figure out what's actually running my life, I was producing my first short film, and everything was in such a flow. We got the money together, we got the people together, we got a DP, director of photography, had all the equipment, and we were set to shoot on Thursday. On Tuesday morning or Monday morning, I got a call from the director that the DP just quit because he got a bigger job offered. He cannot do our little shoot for 2 days. He just got a feature film. And we were struggling to replace him, to find the equipment, to find everything within our budget. I was going so crazy, I thought I had to cancel the shoot. And then I called one of my friends who I was studying with. I'm like, you need to help me. You need to work on this. We need to figure out why this is happening. And I'm from Germany, and in Germany, you earn your success. You work hard. You really earn what you do. If things come easy, you're either a cheater or something along those lines. So we did applied kinesiology and had all these German programs. And because everything was so easy and everything was in flow, my program kept in 48 hours before the shoot and said, Kristie, this can't be easy because then you're a cheater. And you need to earn your success. You cannot just create this movie with ease and grace. You really need to earn it. So we did some reprogramming. The next morning, I got an email. It was a Christmas party invitation from this woman I met once through a friend of mine. And I called her. I'm like, don't you have camera equipment? She's like, I do. I also have sound equipment. I have all the equipment. What do you need? I'm like, I need you on set tomorrow at 11 a.m. She's like, no problem. I'll be there. An hour later, she calls me saying, by the way, who's doing your editing? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't even thought that far. She's like, do you know that my husband and I have an editing studio? So while you go on your Christmas vacation, my husband and I can actually cut you a movie, and it's going to be done by the time you're done with your vacation. And that happened within a few hours, like less than 12 hours of me becoming aware of that programming and changing that programming. All of a sudden, everything became with ease and grace. It was incredible.
This is, it's not incredible. This is like
normal.
So truth and so basic about life, yet incredible in that quote, because we have been programmed not to accept that. And it's interesting because here's a very fundamental truth. Every human is equally powerful as every other human. I said, well, if we're all equally powerful, then how did those big, powerful people show up? Where the hell did they get all that extra power? And here's the joke. They didn't get extra power. They just took away our power. So when we're powerless and they're using the power that we could have, they look very powerful and we look like, oh my God, we're victims here. And it was like, because we, as you just said about like in the German culture, every culture has issues about how we disempower ourselves, allowing those that know the power to lord it over us. And we become the victim. Not that we are, but we believe we are. And that's called biologist. There.
Amazing. Bruce, before we wrap up, I just got the 2-minute signal here from Jarvis. Do you have a final message for our audience? What do you want to leave our audience with?
I would like people to understand this right now, that the world is very for most people. Every day you look at the news, things are falling apart. The security of the future is in doubt and all this. I want people to understand that this is a very positive sign. Uh, you say, well, how could that be positive? I say, because the way we were living has caused, right now, we've lost 2/3 of the animals on this planet since 1970.
Yeah.
That 3/4 of the insects are gone. I say, oh my God, the web of life is collapsing under us because we are doing it.
Yeah.
So if we want to survive, if we want civilization to be here, then we can no longer behave and treat the world and each other like we have. So when you see this coming apart, rather than going, oh, it's like, oh, great. Why? Because we cannot build a sustainable world on this old foundation. That's the one that's causing the problem. So I just want people to recognize we're in a state of transition. While you see it falling apart, is recognize what is being created is far better than what we have had. And the issue about news is news always sells when you tell them all the scary stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a newspaper filled with all the wonderful stuff. People go, oh yeah, they're going to be bored with it. So the idea about it is, yes, there's a lot of scary stuff going on, but what you're not paying attention to is there's a lot of growth going on at the same time. As Jarvis had put up earlier, the Me Too is an example of that change right now. Okay. Race issues are that were stinking like an abscess under the surface, always there stinking, have come through the surface.
Yeah.
And it looks bad at the surface, but guess what? It's the response of the public that is very positive. The public saying, I'm not putting up with that. I'm not going to accept this anymore. So when they had a few hundred crazy people out there, supremacists, whoever they are, and then all of a sudden 10,000 people showed up saying, we don't want this. It was this wave that says, look, there's a new world and that old stuff. So the Me Too is a change in evolution. The bringing up of this abscess of poison and toxin under the surface that's been there for a long time, exposing it is releasing this.
Yeah.
So you are seeing an evolution. This is evolution. And the positive side about it is when we come out the other side, it's going to be fabulous. Why? We don't have to have all the sickness. We don't have to have all the stress. And the planet could turn back into a garden instead of the garbage heap we are creating out of it. And when we start living in harmony, heaven on earth is not just a imaginary vision. Heaven on earth is a living reality. And I've touched it and it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, Bruce, it was such a gift to have you on the show today and speak with you. Thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, for spreading that light that you are and teaching us how to create heaven on earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, because maybe there'll be people out there that'll stay right now at this moment going, I want to change my life and now I know where I got to go.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that for this very simple reason. Everyone who changes that consciousness is taking us toward this other reality. Every individual who takes power over their life is creating evolution on this planet. And so thank you for this opportunity to talk to that community. And as I've been talking, I've also noticed all the wonderful graphics that Jarvis somehow sequentially put them all up in most wonderful sequence to support what I was saying. So both of you, deepest appreciation for an opportunity to help us all collectively make a better world.
Thank you so much, Bruce. All right. And Rebel Hearts, I hope you'll go out now and are as inspired as I am to become the change that you want to see in the world, because now you know how to do it thanks to Bruce sharing all his wonderful wisdom. And we'll see you next Wednesday at 3 p.m. And remember in the meantime to rebel on.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at UBN Radio.